Jordi. I'm calling in from New York. It's where I'm located, where our US headquarters is located. I'll be able to speak to you guys around the differences and kind of like between the US and the US culture that I've seen in the past 4 years living here, but also of my own country and my home, like kind of like region and some of the differences. So I'll try to mix in some of my personal perspectives as well. And I'm taking a bit of a step back to kind of make you guys understand the market, the global market, but mostly what we've seen in Europe happen kind of like before what's happening in the US. In the US, there was a single company that was very good and expanding really fast in terms of their marketplace model, which is called Amazon, as all of you guys know. But what happened in Europe, as you can hear from all the other speakers, is that it is a much more saturated market. So we're seeing that actually the share of globally, the share of marketplace sales that's happening is now at like 55 to 56%. Happening on online marketplaces, and it's only growing towards almost 60% in the coming couple of years. And we're seeing that the largest retail channels have now all been converted. So this happened already around 5-6 years ago. This all started happening in Europe. That's where we're from, where our platform started, because there were so many different channels and to manage it. From a technical perspective. And now we're seeing the same thing happening in the United States with the launch of Macy's, Belk, Best Buy, the Bain Canada, like, Target. Everybody is now launching their marketplace. Walmart was smashing it out of the park with the Q1 earnings. I posted on this morning. So we're seeing like a massive growth in both, of course, e-commerce, but also the marketplace share of e-commerce and the amount of retailers that are getting into that. You can also see some of that happening where, that's kind of the other side of the trend, where a lot of these retailers are becoming marketplace. Also, a lot of the brands are directly selling onto those marketplace. So a lot of the steps of the chain, and this is pretty logic, right? Everyone knows what's happening in B2C. A lot of these steps in the chain are being skipped. And that is a very important trend because in a marketplace model, so 3P, you have control of your content. You can give your pricing and kind of like, you can be in control, as opposed to having to rely on resellers, distributors, wholesalers, and going from step to step in the chain, where everyone has also a lot of inventory or overselling or underselling issues. Where we're not what I just said, like a lot of retail platforms are becoming marketplaces, but now also social platforms are becoming transactional marketplace. So of course, I don't know if everyone heard it, but TikTok launched in the UK and Southeast Asia. They might or might not launch in the US later this year. But there's a lot going on in the social platforms that actually also become transactional marketplaces. So everybody is getting into the space, and the trend is that you want brands to kind of like be directly integrated into these channels. A last trend that a few months ago, Amazon announced that they will stop working 1P, so the vendor model, with any reseller. So they're only going to go direct with direct with your brand. So there's a lot of things going on in the market, and you want to be ready for launching it. Glad to hear you guys are launching the Walmart marketplace this week. Yeah. So then the challenge is, what do you take into consideration? Because there are so many out there. You already saw Thijs mentioned a few of them. So I'm taking a bit of a more slightly maybe boring, but more strategic approach on what is out there, but what do you take into consideration? Because there's a lot of differences in channels. So you have, of course, the biggest players that we called out. There's a few very specific vertical marketplaces for niche products. Some do more services, some are more horizontal. So we'll dive into a few of these things. Generally speaking, still Amazon and eBay, they're very excellent, either cross-border, but also holistic marketplaces that we see in the market. And a lot of these local countries have some heroes, we call them. So we'll dive through some of those as well. But what's good to realize is a lot of them are curated. That's their power. That is also the power, because if you're curated, you don't have that much competition from certain regions. that have very low pricing, like China or like the rest of Asia, and some of these platforms keep them away, and therefore you don't have to spend a lot of cost on your advertising. You can actually focus on yeah, if once you're in, like you can focus on just selling your products with the content that you want and that you have. I wanted to deep dive, and we're doing this for every region. So we've already did this for the US and for a few other regions, but for Europe specifically, this is kind of like how the landscape. This is even scratching the surface, I call it. The biggest thing is what you have to realize: there are over 500 marketplaces today in Europe, so you will never be able to sell on all of them. Heck, you're not even going to be able to sell on 20% of them, right? So you want to make sure that you are on the right channel and that you choose the right path to which channel are you going to go on. A company like Thijs, like what they're doing is they're taking also your brand and they're going to do an analysis and see like what is your products, where is it going to fit the best way. So they run it, advice and strategy. Some of them they can actually bring you in. So Channel Engine is a platform that integrates in terms of the technology, integrates to all of them. And it means you can operate all your content across all these channels, as well as your shipments, your orders, stock levels, kind of like have a seamless integration. So if you have one or multiple stock locations, everything can be synced automatically between these channels. I'm going to dive in a few, but what's good to zoom into, as opposed to my home country, what I usually share is before I moved to the United States 4 years ago, I've never ever ordered a single thing on Amazon. I didn't even know really what it was because no one was selling it. No one was using it in the Netherlands. So bol.com is by far the largest channel in the Benelux. And this is a misconception of a lot of companies in the US that don't realize how big some of these local heroes are, where like Thijs said, Poland has eMAG or Poland has Allegro, where Amazon is still not larger than them. So yes, Amazon is very important, especially UK, Germany, and France. But a lot of these other countries have local heroes that are very popular. As an example, France has Cdiscount and FNOC, and they're almost together the same size as Amazon, right? So if you're not selling on those other channels, then yeah, you're gonna miss out on it, and that's where a lot of the local people are buying it from. Also, Germany, we already heard Otto. There's also Kaufland. Those are more also generic marketplaces. They have a lot of offerings, certain industry, certain verticals they do really well with. So it's good to take that into consideration. You can see that also we have more vertical specific things. So funny enough, I call it Zalando almost every day to friends we talk to, and half of them don't know what it is. And this is amazing to me because they sell in 23 countries all over Europe, and they have our fashion clients. So we're specialized in fashion, a part of our business, and we're seeing like the amount of revenue on Zalando is always bigger than Amazon. So it's a fun trend, and I'm gonna make a small prediction. In the United States, this is also going to happen. I don't know which company it's going to be, if it's ASOS or Nordstrom or any of the or Macy's, but whoever is going to reach that mark first, because fashion is not as strong on an Amazon as it could be, because there is so much potential or sorry, so much competition. It's very hard to be different from the market, and that's why companies like Nike, they just take off their products because they don't want to dilute their brand name. So Zalando is really good in curating and making sure it's all well. Wayfair, I think you guys all know, but there's a lot of different kind of platforms. Mano, and there's do-it-yourself. There's actually Otto is really good in home deco as well. And then lastly, you have consumer electronics that MediaMarkt Saturn, a lot of people wouldn't know, but they're the Best Buy of Europe, basically, that actually launched their marketplace a few years ago. And lastly, there's even more specific one, luxury fashion with Yoox and About You. There's sporting groups done by Decathlon. There's refurbished electronics by Backmarket and Refurbed. Like those are all very specific, but extremely successful marketplaces, and often even have more sales than some of the D2C in their own countries. Sonos is one of our clients, and as an example, how they use that to talk about brand expansion, how they use marketplaces is mainly to penetrate new countries, get brand recognition, getting the first like smaller orders, and then make sure that the repeat orders are on their e-commerce website. So It's very important to take marketplaces into your strategy when you're doing your launch, because these websites, these platforms, these retailers have all the traffic, have the name, have the trustworthiness of the market, as opposed to that you're going to try to drive them to your own website. You'll see that there's a lot of differences. Some are open, some are curated, vertical. Well, you can look at this after the session, but there's a lot of things and differences between platforms. Companies like Channel Engine, but especially also Brandsome, they have a very powerful knowledge, but also relationships to tell you about this, but also to bring you into this, right? So we half the time we introduce our clients to these marketplaces because otherwise you're not able to get in. Overall, and I'm quoting Salesforce here, so that's good that they were in this call as well. It also helps with the customer journey. In general, building your brand out there, you're gonna be, it's necessary to be present across all these channels. Right? There's a lot of examples also in the US about people doing their browsing on Bed Bath & Beyond, or maybe not anymore, but doing their browsing on Wayfair. They use the chat and then they order it on Amazon, right? So similar things happen in Europe, where a lot of browsing is being done across those channels, because that creates a trustworthiness around your brand. And then hopefully, of course, they buy on your .com, but often they will purchase on these websites. These are some of the key strategic, but also very practical considerations that you need to have in when you're operating a marketplace or wanting to go on these marketplaces. You of course need to develop a strategy on which channels you would like to go live on, but also what's your goal, or what's your strategy behind it, because it could be that you just want to expand to Germany, but just have a brand name in Germany, and you're fine with not having a profit at the bottom line, right? Because you just want to expand. So think about channels in that strategy. Think about your content, like you heard, SEO, but also just consistency across your brand. You want to make sure that that's done. Your inventory, you want to make sure it's centralized and that you can, postpone your post your inventory across all these channels, and not that you have to sell it like you have inventory with them, and with them, because then it will never be a full optimized sale through. Analytics, yeah, I mean, if you don't know what's going on, you'll not be able to steer into the right direction. Of course, there's a lot of competition, so know what's going on, but also make sure you have a strategy, especially on an Amazon. Like, make sure you know what you're going to do if your resellers are being present there. Are you going to reprice? Are you going to kick them off? Are you going to let them sell? Have a strategy for it, and make sure you focus on profitability. We see a lot of companies say, I want to push all my products on all these marketplaces, but sometimes it doesn't make sense. Make a P&L and look at what are the products that are profitable selling on these marketplaces, and which one of them are going to reach my goals with. And then once you set your foundation, then you can start testing and see like which other products could I sell profitable, or should I create a bundle to make sure I sell it profitable, right? And then of course your pricing is of course important. We basically make sure all your backend systems can be integrated through a single integration into Channel Engine, and that helps you operate and manage all these different marketplaces, feed channels, social commerce, sometimes your e-commerce channels. So kind of like it's the one integration to control and manage it all. That's what we do. We do it often with the help of partners like Brandsome, to make sure also practically you have the choice to do it yourself, where we teach you, or like some of our partners can do it. And in Europe, often we advise to use these partners to localize the content, to localize your strategies. And with that, on the next slide, you can see you can therefore increase your revenues, decrease the cost of operations, and stay in control on what content, stock, and pricing you have across all these channels. And the last slide is mostly a summary. Make sure your foundations are set up correctly. Amazon is not the biggest in every region, and use the local knowledge of those partners to have a right strategy on go-to-market.
I do want to take a quick moment. This is as I'm talking, this is a visual under the hood of how, again, Channel Engine fits a certain category of service providers. I've heard them called integrators, syndicators. Jordi, what do you call this?
I would say more an operations and management platform of marketplaces. So it's like really to manage it. You can see some of your categories, your attributes. You can map it. There's a lot of rules. We just launched our ChatGPT, so half of it is going to be automated. and really like also figuring out like these are here you can see some of the orders come in and your sell-through rates and other statistics. So it's a full end-to-end solution to manage your marketplaces.
To me, it's revolutionary in the sense the whole category of these types of service providers, because you're obviously not having to build out siloed groups in your company for specific marketplaces. You also, if you have 1,000 orders coming on one marketplace and you've got a certain team dealing with inventory on that, you can reallocate to other marketplaces. You know, it sounds really, to me, like a great solution.
Thanks, Joss.